And I'm going to start out as people get on with introductions. I'm going to introduce them and what they do. We'll talk about last year's convention. We'll talk about our structure, because the structure matters in terms of how we're set up, and the way we're set up is going to put us in a winning position going forward, I believe. So let's get to it. Let's see who we got on here with us right now. All right, start the video. Okay, so the video is running now. What you're looking at is the brochure, sort of like the welcome guide for anyone that's attending this convention. And I want to, as I stated a minute ago on my live, I want to make sure people know the difference between what we're doing and what we aspire to do, which is, in this case, physically come together in Gary, Indiana. What we're doing right now is Zooms because of the affordability of it, and because we don't have all our cities on board. It's in Indiana's best interest that we do this, because in Gary, Indiana is where all of our conventions will take place. So we're going to turn this small city, Gary, Indiana, into Convention City. So literally, we have these conventions to give reason for us to have like come to spend money and get to your convention side. So sure. So of course, tells you start right side. When you fold this brochure, that's how you would read it on the right side. So it's the U.S. truck driving Okay, so I just got to keep making sure that I'm not being muted. So anyway, the it's really a Black truck drivers convention. Most of our conventions, even though it may not say Black, some do, but for the most part, the reason for everything we do is to help a community that has been discriminated against since we got here. And so we have no shame in making certain that we talk about all things dealing with Black people. We hope people will join into that mantra and help our Black people get over the structural and systemic racism. So as you can see here, it's July 21st to the 23rd, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're here on Saturday. Friday and Sunday are travel days, and pretty much meal days. So when you get here, you have a meal, and when you leave, you have a meal before you go. So that's why it's the weekend. But Saturday is the nuts and bolts of the entire convention. And then, of course, on the right side, sponsors. So when you see it blank up there with no sponsors, that's part of the problem. Ideally, we will have, and I got some of the trucking companies here: JB Hunt, Werner, XPO, Knight Swift. These are some of the biggest in the trucking industry, in the trucking game. So ideally, they will be sponsors of this idea, this concept of finding Black truck drivers and asking them to coordinate and work with the anti-violence effort of Block by Block, which is us, National Block Club University. Now, I know we have at least two awesome groups that are doing collaboration, like a Black community of truck drivers, and we need that. They are what we call subject matter experts. So those individuals are the ones who you go to for those expertise when it comes to trucking. What we bring to the table is making sure that your family and friends are safe while you're out there on the road, because we're an anti-violence structure. So our whole focus is about block by block, but we recognize that truck drivers play a part in the bigger picture of what we do. So a little bit about National Block Club University. National Block Club University, I'm the founder. We've been around. November 20th next year will be a total of 30 years. And our whole focus is about safer neighborhoods. That's the clear focus. The way we go about safer neighborhoods is block by block, where violence occurs, doing the census, finding out who on the block, what the people on the block are into, and making sure that we rally and put people in positions where it makes sense. So you guys being the truck drivers convention, we want to make certain that when some violence occurs, we go door to door, we meet the people, and anyone that is a truck driver or anyone that has a child that's considering becoming a truck driver, we get them together. That's the goal. In doing that, what this does, it gives that child layers of support, and it gives that adult an opportunity to share their skills and knowledge on to someone else. Now, having said that, we have assigned one specific grade to our truck drivers to help out. And the grade that's been assigned to our truck drivers are fifth graders. So I get it. As a truck driver, you help every grade. But based on our structure, we're going to ask that you specifically add value to our fifth graders. That's what we're going to do. So that's the setup and the structure that we have. We hope that our people will, have no problem with that, because in the end, that's what really, really matters. So that's the structure of National Block Club University. We're in 20 cities. I want to go over here. We just highlighted the lack of sponsors. I read to you some of those trucking giants in the game. And so hopefully next year we'll be able to get some of them to be sponsors that'll help pay for our guest speakers, that'll help pay and offset some of the costs to put on this collaborative effort. The host committee is always in Gary, Indiana, because the conventions are in Gary, Indiana. And of course, the welcoming committee, because if you guys are coming from out of town, if you're not driving your own truck, you're probably going to go through Midway or O'Hare, or if you're riding a train, Amtrak. So the welcoming committee is Chicago team made up of, no matter what, Crystal Daya, awesome person in Chicago's West Side, have Gone Again Travels, and also their, I can't see the name here, Governor Valerie. So Governor Valerie, and technically all our governors will be aware that our people are coming in for the conventions and be able to make sure that you're okay while you're in the city of Chicago as we migrate you over to the city of Gary, Indiana. So here are the cities, and the way it's set up, each city should have its own steering committee members to help make certain that they're sending 2 people to the convention. So if everyone buy into that philosophy, send 2 to the convention, we're going to have here, let's go through it. We're going to have the Miami, Birmingham, and New Orleans region sending 2 people to the convention, 2 from Miami, 2 from Birmingham, 2 from New Orleans. That's 6 people here just from that region. You're going to have Detroit, St. Louis, and Milwaukee region sending 2 to the Gary convention from Detroit, 2 from St. Louis to Gary, and then 2 from Milwaukee to Gary. The LS region is LA and San Diego, sending 2 people to the convention. Dallas and Memphis is another region, sending 2 to the convention. Then we have the biggest region, which is Boston, Philly, DC, Norfolk, and New York City, sending 2 to the convention. We have KSC region, which is Kansas City, sending 2 to the convention, St. Paul, and Cleveland, Ohio. The last and final region out of the 7 regions is Gary, Chicago, and Atlanta. So as you can see, our headquarters is in Chicago. So of course they are expected to participate. So we only listed Atlanta because Gary is where they are physically. So Chicago and Gary is not listed here because it's understood that they are participants. So of course, any of our truck drivers from this region, these cities are asked to once a year, let's collaborate in Gary, Indiana. So I'm expecting Clotilde Stredrick from the Atlanta area to be on. I'm expecting our brother, actually 2 people. Brother Al came from Mississippi, but now he's in Atlanta. So Al Wilson should be on. I'm expecting Brittany Corners. She's out of Chicago to be on. Bria is out of Chicago. She may get on. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get superstar Gary out of Gary, Indiana. Gary is his name, and yes, out of Gary, Indiana, to get on. And brother also out of Gary, Darnell Biggs. Hopefully he'll be able to jump on as well. In the event that they not able to get on, it's my job to keep things flowing and to keep the knowledge transitioning so that people who are not able to get on can later log on and watch and gain insight into what we're doing here. So having said that, let me get into the history of trucking. And as people get on, I was looking for the paper here. As people get on, they can add more expertise because they're inside the field. I'm not in the field. So for me, I'm gonna come from an outsider perspective, where when they get on, they're gonna be coming from an inside perspective. And inside perspective is always better than outside perspective. So we hope that they would get on so they can give us the real deal, and you can hear directly from the horse's mouth versus hearing from someone that just studies it as a outsider studying. So of course, in the 1920s, it's been said that 1889, Alexander Winston carried the first car. So that was the beginning of the trucking industry. Let me take this down so you guys can see me directly here. 1 minute. We'll pull this down so you guys can see me directly here. I got papers everywhere, so please excuse me with those papers everywhere. Okay. Let's pull this over. All right. Let's take this down so you guys can see me directly. Okay, good, perfect. All right, so I'm gonna go through it fast here. 1889, Alexander Winston created the first semi carrying a car. That was the kickoff, so-called, to the trucking industry. 1896 in Cleveland is when it became incorporated. So that's when they formally made it where it was an industry. Before that, they were using rails, horses, and buggies, and all that type of stuff. Semi-trailers were introduced. When the semi-trailers were introduced, that's when they was able to go long distances, but they still had to, make sure the roads caught up to that as well. Back then, in the 1920s, the tires were solid rubber. So you can imagine how much waste money that was to have solid rubber tires. And of course, it was bumpier. So a lot of the products was damaged because of that constant full rubber before they put air in there. So that was interesting. That was something I didn't know as an outsider when we talking about trucking. That was good to know. They used chain drives to be a transmission. In 1935, that's when the government started getting involved in regulating. So the Motor Carrier Act was started in 1935. So of course, the government is going to do their part and regulate. That's what they do. And so that's when they started that for safety reasons, so they say. All right. Then 1940s, and for those Black people like us, we know what the Jim Crow era represent, and that represents hatred toward Black people, trying to make sure we stay on the bottom. But in the 1940s, Frederick McKinley Jones, Black man, Frederick McKinley Jones, created 3 models of refrigerated trailers. The first Model A and Model B. Model A was too heavy. Model B consumed too much energy, and Model C is when he got it right. And so Model C, he got it right in 1949. And with that was the birth of being able to take food long distances. So every time we see trucks on the road that's refrigerated, our dear brother, Black man, Frederick McKinley Jones is the inventor of that. And that's something that, again, I don't think we highlight enough of, and I think we should. So I'm grateful to be able to share that with you, because that's some insight I didn't even know about. Gladys West, she's a Black woman mathematician. She and a small group of people worked together with the US Navy and created the GPS, Global Positioning System. So GPS is what we all use right now, tracking us, telling us where things are located. And so to know a Black queen was paramount in creating that is refreshing to know that. And so Let's give credit to where credit is due for our sister Gladys West. Robert L. Crawford was the first black trucking company in the United States of America. So again, it's important because this history will be ignored. It would be glossed over and ignored if it wasn't for us highlighting it, taking time out to highlight it. So that's why that matters so much, that we got Robert L. Crawford, first black trucking company, Frederick McKinley Jones, creator of the refrigerated trailers to move food long distances and have it not be spoiled. Gladys West, mathematician who helped work with the Navy and created the GPS. So they did all of this with white wannabe supremacy being at the forefront. During the Jim Crow era, trucking was very difficult for Black people. Willie Edwards Jr., rest in peace for this brother here, he was killed by an insecure, evil Klansman in 1957 while driving his truck. So just think about that. You're killed because of your skin color. So that is very typical how it was back in the day. So when we think about what it's like when you're trucking while Black, that can cost you your life back then, and it did for our brother Willie Edwards Jr. So we want to always remember him, especially because this month his last name's A through E. So paying homage to him makes sense right now. So thank you, our brother Edwards, for your contribution. So now that we got through the history, I want to go over now kind of what our expectations are for today and for next year when we convene again next year. So our expectations is every single zip code where we're at, do we know who the truck drivers are? Every zip code, do we know who the truck drivers are? And the fact that we don't know that, and the fact that we may never know that, it's a constant search. It's a reason to employ people to always stay out there trying to find out who are our retired truck drivers, who are our current truck drivers, and then what young people are thinking about a career in trucking. So between those echelons, block by block, that's a forever job that we want to constantly be out there searching for people that love the idea of travel and moving around. All right. So that's kind of what we expect to come out of this and future conventions when it comes to trucking. Of course, each truck driver going to have their own set of experiences. So that's what we will be discussing. Just, if we had more truck drivers, if we had any truck drivers on the line here. I can talk about some of the challenges that I've heard them speak about, and I will do that, but I want to finish laying out what we want to come out of this. So at the end of today, this 1 hour convention, what we want to have is this document that people can watch later and know that all truck drivers are asked to support fifth graders, and we're going to quarterback that. We're going to make sure that we introduce you to fifth graders so that you can financially help book bags, winter coats, winter boots, whatever way you see fit. If our fifth graders know that truck drivers are looking after them, that's a good inroad into that household for people who may want to grow up and become what your industry already has, which is truck driving. So I just want to make sure that you walk away knowing fifth graders and truck drivers. I want you to walk away knowing that every third Wednesday of the month, we have a meeting about truck drivers and growing the trucking industry, any problems that we're having with trucking, every third Wednesday. So that's 2 pieces of information for you to write down and remember. Third Wednesday is the meeting to talk about trucking issues. Every July, the 4th Saturday in July is the convention when we physically get together. And then all truck drivers are linked to fifth graders to financially support. All right, so thank you for receiving that. Last year, when we met, we had the themes, and these themes is what we want to work on until the next year summit. So between Gary, Chicago, and Atlanta, the theme was about clerical support, people needing administrative support. That was the theme, and that's what Gary, Indiana is headquartered for, is administration. Detroit, St. Louis, and Milwaukee's theme was about laws that's on the books. That can be positive laws or laws that need to be changed, but laws was voted on out of Detroit, St. Louis, and Milwaukee. Under Miami, Birmingham, and New Orleans, toxic food intake was voted on to be discussed at this year's convention. Toxic food intake. Birmingham, Alabama is our food headquarters in Black America. So this is something Birmingham would have taken the lead on to look at. When you're on the road, are you eating more fast food, junk food? Do you have to detox a week when you get home? That's something, if we get any truckers on here, we'll be talking about that. Like, what do you do to stay healthy when you're looking at all this bad food that you're probably taking because you're on the road? Uh, our Boston, Philly, DC, Norfolk, and New York City region, our largest region, decided to focus on missing persons. This is very dear to me because every second Wednesday of the month is our missing persons day, and we literally have about 4 people right now that's in our network or connected to our network that's missing. So we do help with searching and putting the word out and things of that nature. But to have our Black truck drivers united, know them nationwide, when we know the media tends to ignore Black people that's missing. However, the Carly incident is going to kind of set us back, but at least they did show more effort, it appears this way. But anyway, our truck drivers allow us a chance to have people who's connected with CB radios. They had the capacity at truck stops to see fellow truck drivers who may be acting out of sorts, maybe trafficking young people or women. So our truck drivers play a vital role in Team 3 safety when it comes to us. And we want to make sure that you guys know, as truck drivers, we value you for that. You are a part of our safety network. And I thank you for that. So Boston, Philly, DC, Norfolk, and New York City decided on that. Philly is our headquarters for all missing persons nationwide. Then we have KSC, that's Kansas City, St. Paul, and Cleveland. KSC, Kansas City, St. Paul, and Cleveland. And in that region, the focus is about and on exercise. So again, if we had our truckers on here, we'd be asking them, okay, not only are you exposed to all this bad food on the road, but do you have time to exercise? And that's something that, in this case, Cleveland will be taking the lead on nationwide about making sure our truck drivers are exercising. Then we move over to Dallas and Memphis region. And so here they decided to focus on history, and that goes to Dallas, our headquarters for all journalism who does investigative research. And so our truck drivers in Dallas and Memphis are asked to do this research, and Memphis taking the lead on history. Then we have the final region, which is LS, that's Los Angeles and San Diego region. They decided on farming would be the focus. Now, when you're on the road, it's hard to eat fresh fruits and vegetables because you're on the road. So the right network could make sure that you know whatever town you're in, that you know where you can access this fresh food. And again, that's why it makes sense for us to use our platform, our structure to add value to our truck drivers in this instance. And then the national thing was nationally missing persons. So that's how we coordinated last year. That's what happened last year when it came to our truck drivers meeting and discussing. So what I'm gonna do here, we're at almost the 30-minute mark, and I'm gonna pause, take an intermission here. When we come back, we're gonna focus on these questions. What are the 7 top reasons why truck drivers are leaving the industry? We're going to go over that. We're going to spend a little time talking about what the future looks like, and that includes autonomous vehicles and it includes electric vehicles. That should be a 15, 20-minute conversation. So let's take 5 minutes now. We'll reconvene at 10:30. Thank you. All right, everyone, your host, Cy Smith, coming back to you again. Sorry for the break, but it's important for me to just send a quick text out to just check on a few people. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press forward and I'm gonna conclude the convention. And I recorded it so people can catch up. I'm gonna give the rest of the instructions, then I'm gonna conclude, because what we're gonna do is let our truck drivers who was gonna get on, they can watch it and they can add comments to it and they can just give their input that way. So I'm gonna just speak from my vantage point, what I see, and then they can correct it based on their lived experiences. So the American Trucking Association says they're about 80,000. They need about 80,000 more truck drivers right now. So they need truck drivers bad right now. They said that doubles in 2030. So we're right now 7 years away from 2030. So they're gonna need 80,000 more. Now this is with a backdrop of electric vehicles, autonomous trucks being driven, and of course, with any technology that's coming, it's pros and cons. It's pros and cons, and it's not going to be a drop dead replacement date for anything. It takes time, trials, errors. Got to just go through time to make sure that whatever technology is being introduced is vetted and people can recover from the failures of that technology. So the notion that by 2030 all truck drivers will be replaced isn't accurate. And that's pretty much with anything in life. So anyway, the American Trucking Association said 80,000 needed now, 160,000 needed in going forward. But I would say to Black people in particular, I believe information, travel, real estate is the future for us as our economy. So truck drivers match that. And I believe that that's one of the keys for our Black men is getting more Black people on the road. Now, I do believe, based on the interstates that we have and the communities, that we need to have safety networks set up. Like our truck drivers on the road now, they should have a green book that they know where they can call, who they can call, where they can stop in the event of emergency. If you out there on the road and something bad happens racially, that you know where your assets are and your support system. The good thing with our structure is we are on the conference call line, the Zoom line, literally from 10 in the morning Central Time. So if you're on the West Coast, that's 8 in the morning Pacific Time. That's 10 o'clock in Eastern Time. So from 9 all the way until 8 at night Central Time. That's 9 at night Eastern, and that's 7 at night Pacific. So anytime something happens during that time, any truck driver could get on the Zoom and alert us to anything. And we do tap into that, like for missing persons, to tap into our Mr. Biggs, Carlton, people like that. We haven't had to do that yet, so that's a good thing. But the fact that we know those truck drivers are out there, we can just text them and see, hey, where you at? Have you heard anything about anything? So that's what we get to use, that access to those truck drivers to pull something off like that. And that's an asset for all of us to be able to do that. But going back to 160,000 truck drivers needed in 7 years, what we're going to continue to do is every third Wednesday, we're going to continue to ask people, do they have any retired truck drivers, adult truck drivers, or young people that want to be truck drivers? And we're going to try to move and encourage people into a career of trucking. Also, independent trucking. Now, I know my mother-in-law, Brittany, who's supposed to get on as well, they're more or less independent. How do we create support systems for our independent truck drivers who may do their own thing when it comes to the dashboard, when it comes to insurance, when it comes to making sure that they constantly have access to capital? We're working on our banks, creating funds, lines of credit to help with the backing of our community residents so that our business owners, truckers, will have access to credit, and the people on the block is kind of validating or co-signing, if you will. So I wanted to put that out there to help get our numbers up when it comes to 2030. People are leaving the industry. Truck drivers are leaving the industry. Sam Walton said, the founder of Walmart, people don't leave companies, they leave managers. So I'm about to read to you what was said here about why the 7 reasons, and the top reasons, I ain't gonna say 7, the top reasons that truck drivers are leaving the industry. Top reasons. Number 1 reason is pay. That's what's listed, pay. They feel like they're not paid enough. The second reason is they don't like how they're treated. That's the second reason they feel like they're leaving. The third reason, and this is where we wanted to have truck drivers on here so they can give us uh, up close and then personal based on what's being said. Um, they feel underappreciated, and that's across the board. So that's not just with pay, but with the dispatcher, with the customer, with regulations. Everywhere they turn, they feel like they're being underappreciated. The fourth reason, it didn't meet their expectations. This is why 5th grade matters, because what are the expectations? Did you have this glorified view of trucking? So by having our truck drivers commit to 5th graders, that's young enough for them to start to just know what a truck driver's lifestyle is, that you go most of the time, you're on the road. Can you have pets with you? Do you make enough money to be able to make sure all your needs are met at home? Those are the type of things that we want to make sure our young people know before they decide about a career in trucking. Then the last one I share here is they did not receive advancement opportunities. Now, the key with the military, every so often we took tests to get promoted. So it's almost like you're guaranteed to get promoted or out. In the accounting industry, you have to get promoted or you're out. So you're not just going to stay in some role toiling away for 5 to 10 years. You're going to have to either progress or hit the door. So it sounds like, based on this research here, that they don't receive advancement opportunities. So they're just stuck where they are and they feel marginalized. All right. So we went over how many that truck driving is not going away. They need more people now. They're going to need double that in 7 years. Talked about the 7 reasons why truckers are leaving the industry. Now, the last 2 items I'm going to talk about, then I'm going to switch over to the path forward when it comes to truckers and us, is electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles. So let's peel this onion back here. So electric vehicles is the way forward. Electric vehicles are going to increasingly become more available at lower prices. It's just a matter of time. I want to make sure that all people know we don't have electric vehicles without Black children suffering in Congo. You said it again. The world is going to move toward electric vehicles to save the planet. And the planet isn't going to be saved without Black Congolese children suffering and families. So just know that we have to, for all of our electronics that's coming out of Congo, we need to make certain that we're speaking up to say they need to do right by Congo. They need to make sure that we have OSHA-like standards for our people in Congo. We need to make sure that the profits and shareholders of these companies that's making money put lives ahead of their profits. That's something I want to make sure we speak about. But electric vehicles is the future. It's coming. It's going to become more available. A lot of our energy giants are switching over on how they can too make continued profits off of, unfortunately, the everyday consumer. So with electric vehicles, whether it's solar panels, whether it's the vehicles, Congo and Africa is a part of the minerals cobalt for them to be able to do that. Then I want to highlight, as we look at electric vehicles, electric trucks are going to be coming online. As that happens, you're going to see more opportunities to charge up at residences. So you're going to be taking residential areas and converting them into commercial areas because someone needs to charge up. And we know whenever citizens touch, it could be conflict there. So the way I see that, especially with our blocks, is that we make certain that we have our rules of engagement. We have our rules on our block in terms of what's expected, what's not expected. You can't be charging your car, blasting your music. It's 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. You got to be respectful. So the blocks make those adjustments but just know that that's what's coming. That's what's coming. Then autonomous vehicles has a lot of truck drivers worried that they're going to be replaced. No different than robots on the outside of the trucking industry. Here's how I see that. And there's no different than when people call for the National Guard to come into a city to stop the violence. The outsiders coming in, it'll be hard for them to come in and go directly to stop the violence. Now, what makes sense is that the outsiders come in and replace ancillary tasks, less engagement of the people tasks, so that the people who are trained and have relationships can be out in the field touching and improving the conditions on the ground. So it's almost like they become an augmented force. Now, I say that because with the autonomous vehicles, uh, you're not going to have a total replacement of our truck drivers. Now, that's not to say that these vehicles, autonomous vehicles, can't go from California to New York long distance. And I'm speaking totally perception. I don't have no insight on this, but that's why we want the truck drivers to give their thoughts. But if it's some straight shot or a small shot, that might be more practical versus a lot of turns, computing, and things of that nature that requires more complexities. That's how I see it. So I don't think it's ever going to be a total get rid of all truck drivers. I do think it's going to be significant enough to where it's going to impact people, which is why we want to help our truck drivers get into real estate. So that way they got an additional revenue stream, and it's not just built on what they do on the trucking. All right, it is 10:40. We only had 20 minutes left, and that works out because now I get to talk for 10 minutes, and then I can end this about National Block Club Universities, U.S. cities, and how that correlates to truckers. So we're going to come back in 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, everyone, your host, Cy Smith, coming back to you for the last 15 minutes, but we're going to just go for 10 minutes here. And so what I want to do here is conclude with the future. And I gave you my future in terms of just all truck drivers, in terms of autonomous vehicles, the impact electric vehicles are going to have. But I want to highlight what I just talked about, the future for Black people when it comes to truck drivers. So um, the new Black economy is information jobs, travel jobs, real estate, ITR. And just the information jobs is bottom line is we had to find out every single Black household in America what they do, what their children aspire to do. That's a lot of work. It's a forever work, but that's what needs to happen. The census is important because with information, can you make solid decisions? With information, you can make concrete, valid decisions. Without that, now you're making assumptions. So we need to hire people to go and gather research off of our people. All right. That's the information jobs. Travel matters. Travel is everything. Travel is what's going to allow us to make our neighborhoods safer because people are moving around. The vision with our truckers is critical. Mississippi is the blackest state in the union. We have majority of Black people in the South. It's no reason why we don't have our Black truck drivers right now connected from the South up to the North and to the East. That's what we want to work toward, making sure that we have routes that we're financing, the residents block by block, that's going to allow us to bring watermelons up from Georgia. It's going to allow us to bring up catfish from Mississippi up. I get it. Individuals are doing that, but we're talking about structurally and systematically. Individually, people are going to do what they do. We get that. But what are we doing as Black people structurally and systematically? And that's what we're advocates for, that we have our system set up where 3 days a week trucks are moving up here from Mississippi to Chicago to Minnesota. 2 days a week, trucks are going from New York down to Mississippi. We need that exchange. So you as a truck driver, we want to be able to put money in your pocket to work on this national underground railroad, if you will, that's for our community. We think that's critical for us to be able to do that. And what this is also going to allow us to do is to train the next generation, to prepare them with that lifestyle, that truck driver's lifestyle. I also believe when we talk about real estate, we have some opportunities here. We have some beautiful opportunities here. From my vantage point, being in the Navy, traveling around the world, when you go overseas for 6 months, you're wasting 6 months of rent, mortgage because you're not there. Unless you have a family, then you're paying for them to be comfortable. But the point here is there's opportunity for us to do what the new regime is, Airbnb and all this stuff. But before all that, we were already looking at how do we leverage when we're not home with when we're home. How do we create opportunities to capture money, passive money, when we're not doing anything for it? And I believe when we talk about real estate, pulling our money together to buy real estate up in all our neighborhoods while structural racism is trying to put other people in our neighborhood to buy it up, that we buy it up and that we use that extra property to guarantee passive income coming to us. And then we have like the dashboard of truckers. It's a dashboard of real estate. Who's in town, who need a place to stay, vice versa. We need to do for self, just like a Chinatown, just like a Greek town, just like a Little Italy. There's nothing wrong with us doing that for ourselves. And I believe the truck drivers are key on that real estate side. Truck drivers, we're going to show you guys how you can own real estate in Gary, Indiana, in Memphis, in Birmingham, these smaller cities where you still can get 5-figure homes. And that's going to be the catalyst for us with the conventions that causes us to travel. That's what the conventions do. It gives us a reason to move around. And when you're moving around, you need a place to stay. That ties into the real estate part. So that's what I wanted to put out there to you guys. We have several Black businesses that need their produce from the South, and this should be our system moving them products up. You may develop something that you want to get down in the South. Again, our trucks can do that. We can do that type of agreement and coordination. So I just want to thank you guys for listening to us for almost an hour, listening to me. Can't speak to what happened in terms of our truck drivers getting on. But here's what my philosophy is and will continue to be: do what you're supposed to do and don't worry about nothing else. We recorded this so you guys will be able to log on, watch it, share your input, get connected with any of our truck drivers, and just move forward. We got one life to live, you guys. Let's press